The Trial of Humanity, the Judgment Chamber. The galactic tribunal chamber stretched upward into darkness, its walls carved from crystallized starlight that pulsed with the combined energies of 1,000 worlds. Commander Sarah Chen stood alone in the center of the circular platform, surrounded by representatives from 47 different species. Each one stared down at her from their elevated positions, their eyes reflecting judgment, disgust, and in some cases, barely concealed hatred. Sarah kept her spine straight and her chin up. She wore her standard Earth defense uniform, dark blue with silver trim, though it had seen better days. The fabric was torn at the shoulder from her capture, and dried blood stained the sleeve. But she refused to look weak before these beings who had already decided her fate. The chief arbiter, a towering crystalline being called Zapharon, raised one of his many translucent arms. Silence fell across the chamber like a heavy blanket. His voice resonated through the air, carrying the weight of ancient authority that predated human civilization by millions of years. Commander Sarah Chen, of the species known as humanity. Zapharon's voice echoed through translation devices embedded in every surface. You stand accused of the highest cosmic violation. You and your people have trespassed into the Forbidden Sector 7, disturbed ancient seals placed by civilizations far greater than yours, and awakened technologies that were meant to sleep until the end of time itself. Sarah said nothing. She had learned during her 3 weeks of captivity that these beings did not want explanations. They wanted submission, apologies, and groveling. She would give them none of those things. The weight of accusations. A reptilian delegate from the Scarith Empire rose from his seat, his scales rippling with colors that indicated his contempt. "The humans are a plague," he hissed, his forked tongue flickering between sharp teeth. "They spread across space like a disease, claiming worlds, exploiting resources, and now they dare to touch the sacred zones that even our ancestors feared to approach." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Sarah watched as species after species nodded, their various anatomies all expressing the same sentiment. Humanity was guilty. "We have evidence," announced a floating sphere of concentrated energy that represented the Luminar Collective. The sphere projected holographic images into the center of the chamber, just above Sarah's head. She watched the images with the rest of them, though she had seen these recordings before during her interrogation. The holograms showed human exploration vessels approaching a region of space marked with warning beacons in hundreds of languages. The ships were small, scientific vessels, not military craft. Sarah recognized one of them, the Prometheus, captained by her former colleague, Dr. Marcus Webb. The timestamp showed this footage was from 8 months ago. "They were warned," the Luminar representative continued. "Every species in the known galaxy understands the meaning of the red beacons. They mark zones of ancient danger, places where the old wars left scars that still bleed. Yet the humans, in their arrogance and curiosity, chose to ignore these warnings." The hologram shifted to show the Prometheus and 3 other human vessels entering the Forbidden Zone. Sarah remembered that day. She had been on Earth, arguing with the Exploration Committee, telling them that Marcus was making a mistake. But the committee had overruled her concerns. They wanted to know what secrets the Forbidden Zones held, what technologies might be recovered. "What they found," Zapharon's voice cut through her memories, "was the sepulture of Titans, a prison world where the ancient dominion sealed away their most terrible weapons before their empire fell. Your people broke those seals." The hologram showed what happened next. The human ships had landed on a barren planet of black stone and red sky. They had deployed drilling equipment and begun excavating. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, knowing what came next. The ground had split open. Something massive had emerged, a construct of dark metal and pulsing energy that dwarfed the human vessels. It had been a war machine from an age when galaxies burned. The humans had run, but only 2 ships escaped. The Prometheus and another vessel called the Da Vinci had been torn apart, their crews lost. 73 human lives, Sarah said quietly, speaking for the first time. 73 people died because we were curious. We paid for our mistake.
"You paid nothing!" roared a delegate from the Thoraxian hives, an insectoid creature with multiple compound eyes. "That war machine you awakened traveled through 3 systems before we managed to destroy it. It killed millions of our people. Entire hive worlds were sterilized. And you say you paid?" The defense? That wasn't. Sarah felt her jaw tighten. "We didn't know what was there. Your warnings were vague. Red beacons marking danger, but no explanation of what kind of danger or why. If your ancient civilizations were so wise, why didn't they destroy these weapons instead of just hiding them?" The chamber erupted in outrage. Delegates shouted in languages Sarah couldn't understand, even with her translation implant. She had crossed a line by questioning the decisions of the ancient races, the ones who had built the galactic order long before humanity discovered fire. Zaffron slammed his crystalline hand against his podium, and the sound rang out like a thunderclap. Silence returned, though the anger in the air remained thick and palpable. "You dare question the wisdom of the architects?" Zaffron's voice was cold now, devoid of the formal neutrality he had maintained before. "The architects who built the foundations of civilization while your species was still crawling in mud. The architects who saved this galaxy from total annihilation during the Dominion Wars. I question any wisdom that hides dangerous weapons instead of destroying them," Sarah replied, her voice steady, despite the fear coiling in her stomach. "I question a system that punishes curiosity with death sentences, and I question a tribunal that has already decided I'm guilty before hearing any defense." "There is no defense for what humanity has done," declared a floating jellyfish-like creature from the oceanic depth species. "You are a young race, barely 10,000 years since your first civilizations. You understand nothing of the responsibilities that come with traveling among the stars. You endanger everyone with your recklessness." Sarah looked around at the assembled aliens. Each species represented here had existed for hundreds of thousands, some for millions of years. They looked at humanity the way adults looked at dangerous children playing with fire, and perhaps they were right to be concerned, but Sarah refused to accept that humanity should be punished for seeking knowledge, even if that search had tragic consequences. "Then tell us," Sarah said, her voice rising to fill the chamber. "Teach us, share your wisdom instead of just your judgment. We made a mistake, yes. People died, yes. But we didn't act out of malice. We acted out of the same curiosity that drove your species to explore when you were young. Or have you forgotten what it was like to not know everything?" The silence that followed was different. It wasn't angry or hostile, but uncomfortable. Sarah saw some of the delegates shift in their seats, their various body languages expressing something she couldn't quite read. "The decision has been made," Zaffron finally said. "Humanity will be exiled from galactic space. All human colonies outside your home system will be disbanded. All human vessels will be impounded or destroyed. Your species will return to your single planet and remain there under quarantine for no less than 10,000 years. Perhaps in that time, you will learn humility." The artifact awakens. Sarah felt her heart sink. 10,000 years! It might as well be forever. Human civilization would forget the stars, would become myths and legends to future generations. Everything humanity had built among the stars would be erased. "I won't apologize," Sarah said quietly, "not for seeking knowledge, not for being human. If that makes me guilty in your eyes, then I accept your judgment. But know this, you're not teaching us humility. You're teaching us that the old must always crush the new, that power matters more than justice." She expected Zaffron to respond, to deliver some final condemnation. Instead, something else happened. The chamber began to shake. At first, Sarah thought it was some kind of earthquake, but that made no sense. The tribunal station floated in deep space, far from any planetary body. Then she noticed that the shaking seemed to originate from beneath the platform where she stood. The delegates rose from their seats in alarm. Security forces, massive armored beings from a dozen warrior species, moved towards Sarah as if she was somehow causing the disturbance. The floor beneath Sarah's feet cracked. Light, brilliant and golden, spilled through the fractures. She stumbled backward as a section of the platform split open completely, and something rose from the hidden chamber below. It was a cube, roughly 2 meters on each side, made of a material that seemed to shift between metal and stone in pure energy. Symbols covered every surface, writing in a language that predated any current galactic civilization. The cube pulsed with a heartbeat rhythm, and the light it emitted filled the entire chamber. "The architect's seal," Zaffron whispered, his voice filled with something Sarah had never heard from him before: fear. "How is this possible? These chambers were checked. There were no artifacts here." The cube rotated slowly in the air, its symbols beginning to glow brighter. Then it moved, floating directly towards Sarah. She wanted to run, but her legs wouldn't obey. The cube stopped just in front of her, hanging at eye level. One of its surfaces opened like a flower, revealing a core of swirling light. The light reached out, touching Sarah's forehead before she could react. Pain exploded through her skull.
The truth unveiled. The ancient testament. The cube continued to float before Sarah, its golden light casting strange shadows across the tribunal chamber. Commander Sarah Chen remained on her knees, her mind still reeling from the flood of images and information that had been forced into her consciousness. She could feel something new inside her thoughts, like a presence that was both foreign and familiar at the same time. Zephyron descended from his elevated platform, moving with a speed that seemed impossible for his crystalline form. Other delegates followed, creating a semicircle around Sarah and the artifact. Their earlier hostility had transformed into something far more complex. She saw fear in their eyes, yes, but also recognition, and perhaps even reverence. "This cannot be," Zephyron whispered, reaching out toward the cube with a trembling appendage. "The bearers of justice were legend. The last of them died 3 million years ago, before the final collapse of the Architect Alliance. The artifacts were lost, scattered, or destroyed. How does one awaken now, and why does it choose a human?" The cube rotated slowly, and new symbols began appearing on its surfaces. This time, they projected outward as holographic text that automatically translated into every language present in the chamber. Sarah found she could read both the ancient script and the translations simultaneously, a gift from whatever the artifact had done to her mind. "The selection process is not random," the cube's message began. "When the Dominion fell, the architects knew that tyranny would return. It always does. Power corrupts across all species, all civilizations. The bearers of justice were created not as warriors or rulers, but as balance. They were individuals who possessed the rare combination of strength and mercy, conviction and doubt, the ability to stand against injustice, even when standing meant their own destruction." A Thoraxian delegate, one who had earlier called for humanity's exile, clicked her mandibles nervously. "The artifact speaks of ancient history, but it has chosen this human. We demand an explanation. What did she do to activate it?" The cube pulsed, and suddenly the chamber's walls themselves became screens, displaying images that made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. The Forgotten War. The holographic projections showed a galaxy Sarah didn't recognize. The stars were positioned differently, the spiral arms twisted in configurations that suggested this view was from an age when the universe itself was younger. Civilizations sprawled across these ancient skies, thousands of them, interconnected by streams of light that represented trade routes and diplomatic channels. Then, the darkness came. Sarah watched as shadow consumed those lights, system by system, sector by sector. The Dominion appeared in the projections as vessels of impossible size, planet-size constructs that moved through space like locusts through a field. Wherever they went, civilizations fell. Some fought, some surrendered, but the result was always the same: enslavement or extinction. The Dominion Wars lasted for 12,000 years, the cube's narration continued. 300 species were extinguished completely. 2,000 more were enslaved. The Dominion believed that only through absolute control could the galaxy achieve perfect order. They considered themselves saviors, bringing structure to chaos. Sarah saw battles that made her earlier glimpse seem like a brief nightmare. Entire star systems were used as weapons. Suns were extinguished to deny resources to defenders. Planets were cracked open like eggs to harvest their cores. The scale of destruction was incomprehensible. But resistance grew, the cube's narration continued. The Architect Alliance formed from the remnants of free civilizations. They created weapons, yes, but they also created something more important. They created principles, laws that would govern those who fought against tyranny, ensuring that the fighters did not become the very monsters they opposed. Sarah saw them fighting, saw them winning and losing battles. But more importantly, she saw them making choices. A bearer stood on a conquered Dominion world, preventing his own troops from massacring civilians. Another bearer refused to use a weapon that would have won a critical battle but would have destroyed an entire inhabited system. Again and again, the bearers chose the harder path, the one that preserved life even when death would have been easier. The war ended not with the Dominion's destruction, but with their dissolution, the cubes explained. The bearers proved that victory without honor is merely the exchange of one tyranny to another. When the Dominion finally fell, the bearers ensured that empire was dismantled, not conquered. The freed species were given the chance to rebuild, not subjugated under a new master. The projections faded, and the chamber returned to its normal lighting. Sarah found herself standing now, though she didn't remember rising. The cube floated beside her, like a loyal companion. The bearers knew they would not live forever, so they created us, the judgment artifacts. We were scattered across the galaxy and programmed to sleep until the right individual appeared. Someone who displayed the qualities of a true bearer. Someone who would stand for justice even when the entire galaxy stood against them. The criteria of selection. Zephyron's voice was barely a whisper. You chose her because she refused to submit? Because she questioned our authority? I chose her because she accepted responsibility while refusing to accept shame, the cube replied. Your tribunal demanded that humanity apologize for seeking knowledge. Commander Chen acknowledged the deaths that resulted from human actions, but would not apologize for the curiosity that drove those actions. She understood the difference between regret for consequences and shame for intentions. Sarah felt the eyes of every delegate upon her. She wanted to speak, to deny that she was anything special, but the words wouldn't come. The weight of what the artifact was claiming felt impossibly heavy. Furthermore, the cube continued, access her records. The cube projected new images, and Sarah felt her face flush with embarrassment as her own past was displayed for the entire tribunal to witness. She saw herself 3 years ago, standing before the Earth Defense Council, arguing against a proposed strike on a Scarith colony world. The Scarith had been raiding human shipping lanes, and many in Earth's government wanted retaliation. Revenge is not justice, the holographic Sarah argued. Most Scarith oppose the raiders. If we attack their colony, we become the aggressors. We become what we hate. The projection shifted to another moment, this one from 5 years ago. Sarah was leading a rescue mission to save crew members from a damaged alien vessel. Her own superiors had ordered her to abandon the rescue, citing the risk to human lives.
She had disobeyed, saved the alien crew, and faced court-martial for her actions. "I will always choose to save lives over following orders," the recorded Sarah stated during her military trial. "If that makes me unfit for command, then I accept that judgment. But I will not apologize for refusing to let people die when I had the power to save them." More moments followed. Sarah voting against profitable trade deals that would have exploited less advanced species. Sarah reporting human corporations for violating environmental protections on colony worlds. Sarah standing up to admirals, politicians, and corporate leaders whenever she believed they were acting unjustly, regardless of the personal cost to her career. She has been preparing for this role her entire life, the Cube stated simply, not through training or intention, but through the consistent choice to do what was right rather than what was easy. This is the mark of a bearer. The transfer of power. A delegate Sarah didn't recognize, a gaseous being contained in a transparent suit, floated forward. If what you say is true, if this human is truly a bearer of justice, then what happens now? What authority does she possess? The cube pulsed, and Sarah felt a surge of energy flow through her body. Her hand moved of its own accord, reaching out to touch the artifact's surface. The moment her skin made contact, lines of light raced up her arm, across her chest, and throughout her entire body. She gasped as information flooded her mind